Hey everybody, this is Brent with the Canis Foundation. I want to welcome you guys back to our second free online training workshop for you guys. Those of you guys who watched us last week, thank you so much for joining us again this week. Today's subject matter that we're going to be going over is obedience. As a dog trainer, I find out that obedience, it tends to be kind of one of the most misunderstood concepts in dog raising. So today we're going to go over a couple tricks of the trade, how we can kind of best look at obedience to help actually raise our dogs. And then we're going to answer a couple live questions from you guys today. Thank you guys again for joining us last week. Those of you guys who are just tuning in for the first time, I want to tell you a little bit more about our foundation. Our foundation ultimately is an educational foundation that is intended to help rescue organizations and fosters and volunteers at shelters and rescue organizations to learn how to work with dogs' behavior better, right? I've worked with so many rescues over the last 10 years that one of my biggest passions is actually teaching people how to train dogs so that they can help find them homes. Most importantly in my career, helping people who have problem dogs to help keep them in their homes. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, this is a free workshop, but if you guys for any reason feel so inclined, please don't hesitate to donate to our foundation. If you guys go to canisfoundation.org, there's an ability to donate there. We also have a VENMO, which is @Canis Foundation. Again, it's not required, but if you guys feel throwing $1, $2, $5, $10, please throw it our way so we can continue to keep making content. We actually have a premiere of a couple videos that actually aren't on YouTube today in this live stream, so we're excited to send that out to you guys, and that's actually what the fundraising is going to help us, is to allow us to help create more complete content for you guys, the dog owners and the dog lovers out there. All right, so today what I want to go over, we're going to go over obedience, right? And a couple times we get a little confused. So I like to put things in categories. There are tricks, and then there's obedience, right? And so what's the difference? Well, tricks tend to be things that dogs do for exchange of something else. Obedience is something that a human or a person or a child or an employee or whatever does because they know it's their responsibility, it's their job, right? There has to be a certain sense of loyalty developed. And a lot of times we get so confused in dog training, what is the right method? Is it this tough method? Is it technique? So today we're going to hopefully give you guys a little bit more. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in this little baby here, come here, Mochi. Mochi. I want you guys to take a look at this cute baby. This is Mochi. Oh my goodness. She's a 5-month-old bulldog. There, oh, there you go. There you go. We're back. She's a 5-month-old bulldog. She loves her treats, and so we're going to talk about what lures. Okay, so let's go ahead and tilt so we can see this baby a little. Hey, mama. What a lure is defined as? A lure is defined as anything that helps manipulate the behavior or prompt a behavior. Right. So one of the most common lures that we deal with is Okay, oh, it's dead. Okay, no problem. No problem. Sorry, guys, having some technical difficulties. So one of the things is a lure, right? So a food lure is anything that manipulates the dog's behavior, right? So if I can get the dog to sit, or I can get the dog to lay down, maybe I can get the dog to sit again, get the dog to stand, right? So food lures tend to be the easiest lures to help behaviors. However, they're not the only things that exist in dog training, right? Other types of lures, which we'll show you a full video of how we develop them, we're going to be leash lures, right? So if I pull upward on a leash, or if I pull downward on a leash, or if I pull upward, or if I pull to my side, all of these things are other forms of manipulating dogs' behavior, okay? And so teaching food lures specifically, we use food lures to teach a position, and inadvertently we start developing a hand signal, okay? So there's going to be 3 forms of cues in dog training. One is the visual, which is it's a hand. So notice, move it anywhere, the dog is following it. Okay, the way we do that is we just put food in our hands, and over time our dogs think we might have treats in our hands, and they end up following it. Okay, then what we end up developing is we end up developing a word, Okay, and the word itself is developed through the association. Now, this is something I want to be very Rover, sit, 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 Rover, sit, sit, sit. Good dog, right? So what ends up happening, we start kind of barking ourselves kind of like a broken record, and unfortunately what tends to happen, we end up kind of confusing the situation a little bit, and the dog kind of has no clue what we're trying to tell them, and eventually they try something, we reward them for it. Okay, so we're going to go over how to very cleanly teach our dogs the sit command, the down command in sequence. Okay, first step, I put food on our dog's face. We slightly raise the food above the dog's head. Now, mind you, this dog is already in training, so I don't want you guys to think that there aren't going to be some difficulties. Okay, but ultimately what we do is we raise the food above the dog's face. Now, the wrong technique is if we raise it way up here where the dog feels that they have to jump. You see how that works? Just the hand positioning makes all the difference. Okay, so if my hand is up too high, the dog might jump. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep it right above the dog's forehead, just like so. Oh, the audio? Oh. I see. I see. Let's see. Hello, hello. Interesting. Are we still haven't, we lost audio again?
Yeah.
How do we lose audio?
Was that the thing that
No. Hello, hello.
audio is good now?
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you guys so much for that. All right. So we're back at it. We put the treat right above the dog's head, and what that forces the dog to have, what forces the dog to do is they raise their chin ups, and it makes the weight fall back on their back end. Okay, and so naturally what we start doing is we actually have to wait until the dog actually goes in a position. So I remember when we first taught Mochi, Mochi was, she's very, stout, so it's hard for her to necessarily maneuver her body sometimes. So I remember we had to hold it there in position for a certain amount of time until she actually sat. Okay, so I would say 95, 98, 99% of dogs know how to sit. Now the one that's kind of harder, these are adult dogs, is laying down. Okay, so we'll go over some good technique, some different alternate techniques that we can go over. Okay, so first things first, we're going to keep the food on the dog's nose. Okay, as it's on the dog's nose, we're going to take it straight to the ground. I want you to look at the straight line that's happening, straight to the ground. Okay, so we come back up to reverse it. We come straight back down. Now again, this dog's already trained, I understand that, but the biggest mistake people make is they get impatient. So they go down, 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 down. So don't do that. If you catch yourself doing that, just refrain from doing it. You're only confusing the situation. So we can actually get dogs to do stuff with not saying any words. We can just put the food down and the dog does the thing. Put the food up and the dog does the thing. Put the food down, the dog does the thing. Okay, now in a couple scenarios what we want to do is we want to hold the food, or in all the scenarios when working with food, we want to guide the dog into a position that allows them to get rid of some of the physical tension that exists in their body. Okay, so as we're going down, there are some dogs who are really good contortionists, and they tend to kind of like fold over like this, and they are too stubborn to go down. So in those scenarios what we can do is when we come down, we can draw our hand outward to allow the dog to kind of flatten out a bit. Okay, so that's something to think about. All right, so we shape with our food these positions. Okay, once we've shaped these positions to be something that gets rewarded, you're going to see that the dog does them regularly. Notice I haven't said the word sit or haven't said the word down this whole time. Okay, now once we've shaped the position itself, now we have an opportunity to start naming the position. Okay, for those of you guys who may have heard of Pavlov's dog experiment, Pavlov was a guy who accidentally learned a lot about how dogs learn through a experiment that he was doing where he was trying to understand the digestive and salivary systems of dogs. So he wanted to see what got them to salivate. And then by accident, he ended up finding some of the biggest dog training rules ever, right? Pavlovian conditioning, or classical conditioning as known in learning theory, right? So pretty much what this means is he learned that if you ring a bell and showed a dog food, over many repetitions, the dog would start associating that the ringing of the bell predicted the onset of food. Right? And what ended up happening is the sound of the bell would actually make dogs salivate. So the dogs were making this association, ding dong of the bell, and then there was food a few moments later. What he also learned is he learned that if the food and the bell happened at the same time, that the association wouldn't be made. Okay? And so this is a very interesting point to make because a lot of people have a tendency of saying a command and doing the actual hand signal at the same time. Okay, so it looks like this, which a lot of people do it. If you're doing it, I'm telling you, it's not the most efficient or proper way to do it. So it looks like this. This is the wrong way. Sit, sit, down, sit, down, sit, down. Okay, now what's happening is we think that the dog is learning the command, when in actuality, the dog is actually just following the food. You see what's happening? There's not anything really happening. Right? If I want the dog to start associating the word to predict the behavior, what I have to do is I have to say the word before I prompt the dog. So it'll look something like this. Sit. Good. So a little bit of a delay, right? Down. Good. Down. Good. Down. Good. Sit. Down. Good. You saw she kind of beat me on that one, right? Sit. Down. Good. You see the slight little delay. Now, it seems kind of monotonous. It seems very indirect, but trust me, guys, this is one of the tricks that dog trainers use all the time to get our dogs to learn commands very, very quickly. You say the word, then you give the prompt for the behavior. In this scenario, again, we're using a food prompt or a food lure to get the behavior of sitting down. Sit, down, sit, down, sit, down, sit. Good. Okay? And over time, the dog's going to start learning. Okay? So let's see if she knows. Down. Whoop. Good. And we give her the no. And that's going to help her. Sit. Good. Down. Yeah, very good. So now we kind of start making it a prediction game. Sit. Down. Good. Again. Sit. Down. Yeah. Good. Okay. Down. That's very good. Let's keep going until she nails this. Sit. Down. Mochi. Down. Good. Good. Mochi. Sit. Sit. Good. Mochi. Mochi. Down. That's a good dog. You see how she predicted it that time? Okay? Because the dog has to have this rhythm. They have to see this sequence that stays consistent. So there's my sequence, or the sequence that most dog trainers use, is very different than the sequence that I use. So let's go over the right way and the wrong way. The right way. Sit. Prompt the dog. Down. Prompt the dog. Sit. So the prompt comes after the word. Down. Good. See how she predicted that one? Sit. Good. Down. Good girl. Okay, you see how she's nailing it now? And I'm not having to do the wrong way, which is like this. Sit, sit, sit. Good girl. No, sit. No, no, sit, sit, right? How can I get the dog to sit? I can prompt the dog. very simply. All right, so I don't have to waste breath or fall into that broken record technique that happens. Okay, so this is food lures, and this is how we condition commands. Okay, I want to show you guys a video, or actually, so that's how we work with food. Anything with food is let's see. I'm good on this end. Let's see. Let's see. Let us know when it's back. Is it still gone? Hello, hello. Okay, we're still good there. It's back on.
Okay. Yay.
All right, thanks. Thank you, guys. I think something, maybe my cable's getting loose. I just ordered a new one. You guys will be very proud of me. All right, let's go back.
It seems to fix itself when you touch the remote.
When I touch what remote? Oh, when I touch this thing. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for staying connected. All right, so we were talking about food lures, right? So then it brings us to this next portion of training, okay? We can train with food, and we do train most every beginning behavior with food. However, there are certain impulses in our dogs, certain reactions that our dogs might have that kind of lead to them being very difficult to control. For example, they see a squirrel, they see another dog, they see a person that they like, they see something that they hate, for example, and they're reactive towards it. And so sometimes in those situations, no amount of food is going to redirect that dog to you in a way where we can be effective or get them focused or anything like that. So, so this leads us to leash training. And getting our dogs to follow certain responses on leash is another, I wouldn't say it's a different style of training. It's like the next grade of training. Okay, so we can teach puppies with lots of food off leash inside the house, but ultimately we get to a point where we have to introduce our dogs to walk on leash so we can take them out into public. We also have to make sure that the leash doesn't become a restraining device or a restraining tool. We want to make sure that the leash actually becomes a communication tool and something that is easy for us to use and that the dog understands. Those of you guys who've ever ridden horses, for example, you know, one of my trainers is actually a horse trainer, and you know, early life with a horse, actually just teaching horses how to be led, right? How to follow, how to take direction, so that when they're older, they can be actually controlled and go to races or go on a trail or whatever you might need, okay? And so we have to, in essence, do that with our dogs as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and introduce you guys to a couple leash training techniques a little bit later. But before we get into that, we want to go over some training collars. Okay, there is another problem that tends to stem where we walk our dogs on leash. Dogs are pulling and lunging and going all over the place. And what tends to then on styles of training. So if a dog to pull things, dog harness. If I am hiking up a hill, put the dog on a harness. Ultimately, harnesses were designed for pulling things, pulling carts, huskies, and a lot of the snow dogs, they pull sleds on harnesses. So one of the only advantages that...
Audio went out again. It's in and out now.
Uh-oh. Okay. Hopefully it's back on.
It's back on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what ends up happening is harnesses have a tendency... Hope that works still. Hope it works. Harnesses have a tendency of exacerbating pulling. Now, I tell you one thing, they do prevent choking, okay? And I'm not bashing on harnesses because even my dog uses a harness occasionally when it's appropriate. But harnesses for dogs who are pulling and reactive, it kind of seems like a weird direction to go, right? It's like I have a dog who's choking themselves, and so what I end up doing is I put them on a harness so that they stop choking themselves, but guess what? Your dog's more out of focus than they probably ever were after that. So I want to introduce you guys to a video. Now this video is all about training collars and how kind of they work. I'm going to introduce you to a couple different styles of training collars. And it's about a 10-minute video. I want you guys to watch it. It's not finished yet. We actually just recorded it this week, and when it's finished and completely edited, we will put it up on YouTube for you guys to share and watch again. But this is the first rough cut of it, and I hope you guys like it. It's these types of videos that we're planning on creating for you guys so that you can help yourself when working with dogs. Okay, go ahead and hit that video for me. Hey guys, this is Brent from Canis, and today we're going to be going over different types of training collars. Now, some of you guys may walk your dogs on harnesses. We'll talk about that in a different video of when it works, when it doesn't work. But if you have a dog who is lunging and pulling and reactive on walks, training collars will definitely be the answer and the solution for you. However, if you don't know how to use them properly, you can misuse them and accidentally hurt the dog or choke the dog. So these are not things that we want to do when working with training collars. So make sure that you guys consult with a professional on how to use those tools properly. But before we do that, let's introduce you to all the tools so you can figure out maybe which one might be the best for you and your dog. Okay, one of the very, very first tools that we have here, and this is actually one of the oldest dog training tools in history, is actually known as a slip lead. A long time ago, this used to be made out of a piece of bounded leather. Modern days, it's just a piece of rope with a loop at the very, very end. And you see this used a lot in dog shows. You see this used a lot at veterinary offices, at dog kennels, because it allows us to have a very easy, kind of slip on. If the dog pulls, it tightens. If the dog relaxes, it loosens up, just like this. If they pull, it tightens, and if it relaxes, so does the leash, okay? So a training collar is ultimately going to be defined as anything that constricts around the dog's neck and then releases when the dog decides to back off of the pressure that they're applying themselves, okay? So this is called a slip lead. The metal version of this is known as a slip chain, also known in society as a choke chain. Unfortunately, has such a bad name, a lot of people stay away from this. This takes a certain type of technique in order for it to work effectively. Any dog trainer who uses training collars should be able to teach you how to use properly, okay? So this is a slip chain. The next one we have, this is actually called a martingale. It's half collar, half slip chain, and what this allows us to do, it allows us to, if the dog pulls, it also tightens around their neck, and if the dog relaxes, the collar itself will relax as well, okay? This collar was actually designed for dogs whose heads and necks were similar widths. For example, greyhounds, whippets, any dog with a very slender neck and a slender head. So that's what this was created for. All right, then we go into what we call head collars. This is called a Halti. Now, Haltis are wonderful for preventing our dogs from lunging and pulling. If that is your goal, this is definitely a great tool for you guys to use. It just does take a little bit of conditioning to get the dog used to having something on their face. But if your dog is suffering from lack of focus or very impulsive or reactive, I wouldn't recommend this collar because it does not help us keep the dog's focus, okay? Unlike some of these other collars do. Now, very, very last collars we're going to go over are probably some of the most controversial collars that exist. These two collars are pointed collars. This is called a Prong Collar, and this is a Star Mark Pro Trainer, which is a plastic prong collar ultimately. And these two collars get a lot of bad reputation just across the board in dog owners. You have people who love them and people who hate them. Now let's talk about why people hate them. Obviously, they have points on them. So it's very easy to interpret these tools to look like medieval torture devices. But ultimately, the reason for these collars to have points is actually so that way it actually prevents pulling on the dog's part. Okay, just like any tool here on this table, these tools require training and they require technique in order for them to work, these ones included. So these can actually be very, very effective on dogs who are extreme pullers and dogs who are very, very impulsive and reactive. Okay, so these are all the collars. Let's go ahead and talk about how we can best figure out which collar is going to be the best for our dog. Check it out. Hey guys, this is Christiana, one of our trainers here at Canis. And before we move on to kind of how we go ahead and assess which training collar is going to be the right one, first thing I want to do is I want to teach you guys how to engage the collars in general. Okay, so we're just going to use this little slip lead real quick, and we're going to go over how to engage it properly, so that way each time we put a training collar on, we know how to get the maximum amount of control out of a training collar. Okay, so here we go. Go ahead and hold on to that if you can, and go ahead and hold it close to your chest. Okay, so pretty much anytime we engage a leash, the wrong way to do it is we don't want tension to exist on the leash the whole time. So imagine if she was the dog and she starts pulling, go ahead and pull. This is not okay. Tension on the leash is not how we use training collars. The key is we want the leash to almost not be able to be perceived by the dog unless we're gonna give a little bit of a reminder or engage that collar, okay? So for the most part, the leash needs to be very loose and dangly. Okay, if the leash is loose and dangly, what this allows us to do, it allows us to very quickly, hold it tight to your chest, it allows us very quickly to give a tug and release. Okay, now what this motion does, it engages a training collar. Okay, it engages a training collar so that it actually does what it's designed to do. So if I do it very quickly, it looks like this. All right, I can do it at different variations of strength, so I can go soft. If that works, if the dog's more distracted, I might go a little harder. If the dog's very, very distracted, I might have to go a little bit harder. However, if we have to use an extensive amount of force to get our dog's attention around a distraction, it is possible that that might be the wrong training collar. So I want you guys to just keep this in mind before we move on to actually testing out training collars on dogs. So just pay attention to that. Make sure that we keep the leash loose. Make sure that it's only engaged when we're trying to grab the dog's attention. And if you have to do it too much, you might have the wrong training collar. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how you can test which training collar is gonna be the most effective for you and your dog. This is our buddy Milo right here. We're gonna go ahead and do a little diagnostic test. Pretty much the way that the test works out is you're gonna put a distraction or something that the dog really likes in front of them, and we're gonna go ahead and see which tool is gonna be the most useful for preventing the dog from getting to the thing that they like. Because ultimately when we're outside, dogs want to sniff, they want to pull towards people, they want to pull towards dogs. So it's really important that we have a tool that is able to control our dogs in the most distracting environments. So this is the little test that we run. Milo, hi boy, hi. Right now Milo's just on a slip lead, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and ask Christiana to go ahead and engage the collar. Go ahead and engage the collar, perfect. And go ahead and let's try this. Go ahead, try and prevent Milo from coming any further than this line right here. Milo, hi boy. Good. So when she gives that little tap and release, it is working and getting the dog to stop. Now the second component that we're looking at from the collar is, does it teach the dog to do something different? Okay, so for example, it's all right if the dog comes once, maybe twice, but is the dog coming a third or a fourth or a fifth time? If that's the case, it is potentially not the right tool for your dog. So let's try it out. Hi! Hi, Milo! Hi! Milo, hi! Hi! Okay, so that's the second time, made the mistake. Let's try this again. Milo! Hi, Milo! Milo! Hi, boy! Hi! Hi! Good. So we see how now all of a sudden Milo doesn't care about me and is actually just hanging out right next to Christiana, all right? So this is ultimately what our goal is we want to find a tool that can motivate the dog to ignore certain things so that we can have them put their focus on other things. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next dog. Check it out. All right, so now we got our second dog. This is Annabelle. She is a 1-year-old Vizsla who's a little bit more energetic, a little bit more distracted and impulsive. So we're gonna go ahead and use the exact same tool we were using on little Milo. Go ahead and do me a favor. Proper technique is we would actually take this slip lead and we'd actually put it as high above the dog, right behind the dog's ears, as close and high as we possibly can. There you go, perfect. So this is proper placement of a slip lead. All right, so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna run the exact same diagnostic to see how the dog does. Hi, Annabelle. Hi, Annabelle. Hello. Hi, Annabelle. Hi, baby. Hi. Hi, Annabelle. Oh, you're a good girl. So she is learning a little bit to control herself, but let's see if we give it a pause, if she will still remember. So let's see. Annabelle. Hi, Mama. Oh, yes. Hi, baby. Good. So in this scenario, we actually see that the slip lead is also working for Annabelle. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next dog. Alrighty, guys. Now we have our boy Franklin over here. He is a 10-month-old Doberman. We're gonna go ahead and try this out. He really likes certain types of toys, tennis balls, he likes squeakers. Remember, the key to finding the right training tool is making sure that we find a tool that allows us to get the dog's attention in the highest form of distraction, okay? So let's go ahead and try it out. Franklin, hi boy. Hi, hi boy. Hi boy. Hi boy. Okay, so we're gonna try this one more time. Hi Franklin, hi. So you see how Franklin keeps making the same mistake over and over? So this tells us now that we've had to do it too many times, we've had to do too many repetitions, and the dog is still fixated on getting whatever's in front of him. So let's go ahead and switch out to a different type of training collar. Let's go ahead and try, for a big dog like him, maybe let's go ahead and try a prong collar. Let's get a baby prong and let's just put it high on his ears for us. So now we have Franklin on a 2.25 millimeter pinch collar, okay? Now this is a smaller version of the collar. We use the smaller versions just so that way we can get a better fit around the dog's neck. It's also more low profile. And so we're gonna see how the dog responds to this. Now I'm using food as an ultimate distraction, but we want to see if we can actually get the dog's attention and teach the dog not to pull against the end of the leash with this type of tool. So let's go ahead and try it out. Back up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to tease him a little bit. Hi, boy. Good. And just with a little bit of an engagement. Hi, boy. What's that? Hi. You want some of this? So now here's an interesting thing. Notice how Franklin is actually second guessing pulling towards me again. This is actually the result of an effective choice of a training collar. Now, we saw this again with Milo, with the slip lead. We saw it also with the Vizsla. And now we started seeing a dog like him who's a little bit stronger, a little bit more impulsive, actually is benefiting from the use of a pinch collar, right? Now these collars get a bad rep, as we talked about earlier, but in situations like this, they can be amazing, amazing training tools to make sure that we can communicate to our dogs that we want them to stop doing something. Cool, guys, let's move on. All right, now we have a new dog. This is Bernie. How old is Bernie?
He's about 5.
5 years old, never been leash trained before. So let's go ahead and test this one out. All right, Bernie, look. Hi. Go ahead and stand back a little further. Bernie, hi, boy. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Bernie. So you see how in 4 times in a row, Bernie made the same decision. Let's go ahead and switch up the tools.
Okay, Brian.
All right, so now we just switched Bernie out to a Star Mark Pro Trainer. We're gonna assess to see if this helps at all communicate the dog not to pull against the end of the leash. So, Bernie, hi boy. Hi boy. Hi boy. Hi boy. Oh, we see a little different reaction. Hi. So the dog now is not advancing forward, okay? So this now is serving as a more effective tool to grab the dog's attention to stop pulling against the leash. Let's just proof it again, walk away, come right back. All right, let's try it, let's check it out again. Hi, Bernie. Good. Hi, Bernie. Bernie. So a training collar usually has a self-correcting component to it. Anytime the dog pulls against it, it squeezes and tightens. Anytime that the dog backs off with the collar, it releases. This naturally teaches the dog that pulling is not a good thing to do, and when they back off or stop, refrain from pulling, that it actually is a better decision for them to make. All right, so that wraps up our training collar video. I hope that you guys can find the right training tool for your specific dog. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Canis Foundation, and me or one of the members of my team will be happy to guide you guys through it. All right, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys later. Peace. everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, it's the first draft. We are finishing it up, putting titles and everything on it. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us and watching. We really hope that this stuff is helpful for you guys. Again, to tell you guys a little bit about the foundation is ultimately intended to help educate you guys on a more balanced approach in dog training. As a dog trainer for the last 12 years, I've seen so many dogs suffer from bad behavior, and unfortunately it led to them having to get rehomed, unfortunately some of them having to get euthanized, and so it's always been my big passion to really make sure that people understand the full spectrum of dog training. Okay, it is so important to me that people understand and have access to complete education and knowledge for their dogs. And here's the interesting thing is, it's not about sides. It's not about this method versus that method. It's about what method's going to work best for you and your dog, because every dog is different, every household is different, every person is different. As a dog trainer, I kind of hate the politics of dog training a little bit. So part of what we want to do, guys, is we want to help animals. And so we always want to approach things sometimes with an open mind and a multidisciplined approach, so that we can help the animals in the shelter, animals at rescue organizations, and most importantly, the animals who already have homes. We need to make sure that those dogs stay in their homes, so that way they have a brighter future. All right, so thank you guys so much for sticking around. Again, if you guys feel like donating to the Canis Foundation, at Canis Foundation on Venmo, you can do info@canisfoundation.org on PayPal. All the links down low in the description will tell you where you guys could best donate. We really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. So that last video on finding training collars are really cool because they allow us to make our jobs a lot easier when keeping our dogs focused and teaching them things, right? As we know growing up, we know how important it is to our parents telling us what we should do, and then also our parents telling us what we shouldn't do. In a world that is so stimulating and distracting for dogs, it's so important for us to be able to tell our dogs what they shouldn't do, so that we can focus on the positive things, what they should do. I want to introduce a friend of ours, Mama. This is Miss Willow. She is about a 3-year-old silver lab. Mama, hi. And before I met her, she was a very active, excited dog. Okay, I wanted to show you guys just a couple ways that we use leash training collars to actually teach the next thing, which are leash lures and leash pressure. Okay, or kind of where the application of leash pressure starts. Okay, usually when we're teaching leash pressure and training collars come in handy when we're teaching stays. Okay, for example, if my dog stays and I ask them to stay, it's expected that they don't move, right? Now, in the event if a dog breaks, if I don't have a leash on my dog, the only option I have is to grab another treat, hey, sit, and get the dog to sit back down, right? So this is a food training method, stay. But if I have a dog who's very, very excited, Christiana, could you be a distraction real quick for Miss Willow? So the only option I have is to repeat and ask the dog to sit. Unfortunately, if the distraction is strong enough, go ahead and distract. She likes the food actually a lot. If the distraction is strong enough, stay. She's also trained, so this is not a good example. So let's imagine she broke the command, okay? Let's say she broke the command. If the dog breaks the command, I put the dog back in position. Okay, there you go. Food versus food. Let's try that distraction. Again, she's trained, not fair. But the way that we trained her, that's the point, the way that we trained her to do this is if she broke the command with a training collar and a leash, I was able to guide her back to what I needed her to do. Okay, so part of what our goal is it allows us to communicate what the dog made a mistake on, so that the dog could put focus, stay back on what it is that we want them to do. Again, get a little closer and tease her a little bit more. So for example, oh, that's a little harder. Now she's really good. Her dad practices a lot with food, so she's really, really good. How about a tennis ball? We have a tennis somewhere, or squeaky? Okay, yes, good girl, she can eat that. Yeah, her dad is amazing at that exercise with her. Oh, let me see that. Oh, Mama, what's this? What's that? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hello. Yeah. Sit. Okay, stay. So we practice the stay. In the event the dog breaks the stay, let's just try and create one. You can break the stay now. You can break the stay. Okay, let's say the dog broke the stay. I would put the dog back in position with my leash and prompt her into what I need her to do, like so. Now I can say the word one time, sit, but just like with the food and the prompting, we don't want to go sit, sit, sit. We are going to say sit once and prompt, stay. Okay, so the reason for that sit prompt is so that way we don't have to repeat ourselves and so we can be very direct and very clear. You want to lay down, mama? You want to play again? Willow, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Okay, so same thing goes also on the down. Sit, down, good, sit, down, good, stay. If the dog breaks the command, you can, okay, let's say she broke it without permission. I'm going to grab the dog and I can actually prompt her and remind her what she needs to be doing. Okay, so this is ultimately leash pressure. Okay, so I want to show you guys a little bit, a clip from a video, or from a class that I was doing with dogs who are very, very reactive. Now this particular class is designed for dogs who are reactive and out of control, pulling, lunging, leash aggression, etc. And I want you guys to see how a classroom of dogs who when they first met each other were lunging and barking at each other, how at the end of this class, this is literally shot in just one class, our very, very first class, how the introduction of leash pressure, how the introduction of the right training collars is going to actually help bring balance and peace to all of those dogs. All right, so Lasan, if you can get ready to queue up that next video, please. Okay, check out this video, guys. You guys can find this one, actually it's not out on YouTube yet, but you guys can check it out right here live for the very, very first time. Go ahead and hit it. A lot of people always ask, well, why, if the dog knows sit already, why do we have to develop the physical form? For stays and for self-control. If we don't develop a physical form of sit, we are doomed for the rest of our lives to go sit, 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 sit. Good boy. For the rest of our lives, we are doomed if we do not have physical ways of prompting our dogs to do the things we want them to do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the dog to our side. Come on, Luca. We're gonna gently pull up on their collars and guiding the tush down, and we're gonna wait till he drops. Good boy. Pull up and then push the tush down. Good. So let's keep practicing. So what I want us to do is I want us to gradually increase the pressure because we will hit a breaking point quicker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the tush we go 1, 2, 3, 4. At the same time, we'll see that it happens quicker. Good job. Pull up and hold pressure and then push the tush down. Good, okay? Pull straight up. And hold, and let go. Beautiful, love that. So it's a big difference between our dogs knowing how to sit eventually to sitting immediately. All right, so what our objective is right now, it's teaching our hands and our dogs to stay seated even if there are distractions. So on purpose, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna come up to you guys with some distraction. And I want you guys to keep your dog seated. Hi, boy. Pull straight up. Hi, boy. Hi, boy. Good, you see the self-correction? Give him a treat, okay? I'm gonna go bigger. Mootsies! Hey, look, food! Who's your food? Look, my food! Woo! Give him a treat. So what we're looking at is the absence of bad behavior gets rewarded. Hi, boy. Hi. Treat. Straight up. There you go, relax. Hi. Straight up. That was awesome. Very good. Hi, Finnegan. Straight up. Good, and relax, good. Straight up, go back, pull him straight back where he was. Good, and relax, good. That was it, yes. That's all we were looking for was that one time. So in this scenario, what we're doing, I want us to kind of wrap our heads around control over dogs. Dogs have no quit in them, as we talked about. Our job is to teach them the same values that we learned as kids. Be still, be relaxed, be calm, ask for permission, be patient, it's okay. And we're gonna reward our dogs for those right decisions that they make. Hey everybody, we are back. I hope you guys liked that video. Oh, can you turn that one off? Sorry. So yeah, welcome back, guys. So the biggest thing I want you guys to understand when it comes to your dog's obedience and your dog's training, there's going to be a couple stages, and after I explain this, we're going to go over open to Q&As from you guys. There's going to be stages. When we teach dogs commands or concepts, that is our very, very first stage. So I can't tell you guys enough how many times clients tell me, they go, hi, Brent, I'm looking for dog training. And I go, okay, great. Well, what can I help you with? And they go, well, my dog's very obedient. They're very well trained. They know how to sit and roll over and give paw, and they know how to high five, and they know how to spin, and they have to do all these things. And I go, great, that's awesome. So what are you calling me for? And they go, well, I'll tell you what, my dog bites people, right? Or my dog lunges at things, or my dog destroys things, right? And so there's a huge difference between the dog knowing tricks and a dog knowing commands. All right, so I'm going to kind of break you guys down through a stage-by-stage process of how this works. And it's kind of something from my childhood that I hope you guys find entertaining. Maybe you guys can relate to it. So I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. So this means that when I was really, really small, obviously the youngest, I didn't have to do as many chores as everyone else did. But this one I remember for a fact. So when I was a little kid, my mom would sit me up on the counter when she was doing dishes. And she would give me little jobs. She'd give me a towel, and I would have to wipe the dish down and put it in a dry pile. Okay, she'd give me all the dishes, I'd dry them, dry the cup, and I'd put it in a pile. Then later, my job was to help her put them in the cabinets. I'm standing on the counter, I'm like 3 or 4 years old. And then maybe my job was to rinse or soap something. And so what is my mom doing? She's teaching me the step-by-step stages of washing dishes. Right? And then when I was younger, a little bit older after that, then she actually started making it a requirement, now that I knew how to wash dishes, that I needed to wash my dish after every meal, right? So I would take my dish, I would go to the sink, and I would have to clean it. Now here's the interesting thing. If I didn't wash my dish, my mom would get insistent. She would demand it from me. If I got distracted and I did something else, my mom would go, hey, what'd you do? Go put your dish, make sure you wash your dish and put it away, right? And so there was this expectation all of a sudden. And the expectation ultimately came from, I already knew how to wash my dish. So I can't all of a sudden say, well, sorry, Mom, I don't know how to do this, So eventually, then what happened is I got to condition that skill over and over and over after every single meal. Then when I was 10 and 12, it started becoming my responsibility, not just to wash my dish, but to wash everyone's dishes, right? We all had turns week by week. It's time to do the dishes. It's your turn to do the dishes. It's your turn to do the dishes. And so what ends up happening is that in and of itself, till this day, I know how to wash dishes. And I'm pretty good at washing dishes. Now, I will tell you, do I wash dishes every day? No. But can I clean the heck out of my kitchen? I totally can, right? And so there's an aspect to training that has to do with teaching something, conditioning something, and then making sure that that conditioning forms a habit, right? And what I hear a lot is of dogs who know obedience, commands, it's just not a habit yet. And the reason it's not a habit is because you haven't made it a habit. Face it, right? A lot of times we have a tendency of only asking dogs to do things when they're doing something distracting, when they're doing something wrong, and unfortunately we let them do whatever they want after that point, if they're not killing anything or destroying anything, okay? So wrap your head around this, guys. Obedience is a process. A good dog trainer should be able to guide you guys through all of these stages, and you guys will see the results. So if you guys have been working with dog trainers who, it's 8 sessions in and you guys aren't seeing a lot of results, potentially might be a wrong approach. Potentially, the dog might need a different scaffolding for maybe the dog's learning in too hard of a situation. There's so many variables that us as dog trainers have to juggle. I want you guys to kind of keep those things in mind. What's the easiest way for me to teach my dog stuff? What's the best way for me to condition on an everyday basis? And then, am I seeing that my dog is making the habit a choice to have the habit on a regular basis? So it would look like, does my dog sit at the doors? Does my dog sit when I come to a stop? Does my dog refrain from begging for food? Does my dog like to lay on their bed? So these are examples of your dog deciding to do a behavior that you've taught them to do without you telling them, right? And so I'm going to leave you with this last cliche in dog training. Dog trainers like to develop behaviors versus dog owners like to eliminate behaviors. I'm always getting calls with, how do I teach my dog to stop jumping on the counter? How do I teach my dog to stop pulling? How do I teach my dog to stop doing this? As dog trainers, we look at things in a broader spectrum. We go, how can we teach our dogs to live in a house? How can we teach our dogs to have a nice walk? How can we teach our dogs to have good manners, right? And so we have a big broader spectrum, and I think if you guys can open up your mind to this spectrum of lessons and opportunities and different training tools. I have a feeling that those of you guys who might be stuck will find a lot more success. All right, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at the Canis Foundation or call Canis Behavior, my company, and we'd be happy to answer those questions for free. Just tell them that you heard this on YouTube Live, and we'd be happy to honor that free consultation with you guys. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and open this up with some Q&As from you. Lasan, do we have any Q&As? Not yet. Perfect. Hey, we don't have any Q&As, and we can wrap it up. I'll give you guys a little bit of time. If you guys have any questions regarding your dog's obedience, behavior, management, if you guys haven't noticed, we kind of upped our streaming game this week. So thank you again. Those of you guys who are tuning in or don't necessarily know what you're watching, this is a free online workshop for the Canis Foundation, my nonprofit, actually all of our nonprofit, everyone who works here. It's our passion project. And what we do, give you some more details, we actually partner with a couple of other dog trainers in Los Angeles. And pretty much our whole mission is to help dogs in shelters and rescues to get into homes immediately by teaching fosters and volunteers to be able to help them with pulling and jumping and very basic behavior stuff. Okay? Our other mission is to really make sure that troubled dogs stay in the homes that they live in so that we can give people the resources and the complete education that they need to be able to keep those dogs in their homes. Okay? Any questions?
No. Jason King said we have a session with you this week.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome, Jason. Thanks, man.
In choosing a training leash, should we start with a slip leash and then move up to another type if it doesn't work?
This is Juan Garcia.
Yeah. So good question, Juan. So just to rephrase the question, because I'm not sure if the mic picks up what she was saying. When looking for training collars, do we start with a slip lead always? I guess the answer would be no. I think one thing we'd have to look at is how progressive is the dog's pulling and being out of focus, right? If the dog is very, very out of focus, then you might want to start either maybe with you could do a star mark, or you could start with a pinch collar. I think you have a German Shepherd, correct? From what I remember. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, I would start with either a star mark or a pinch collar if your dog is a very excessive puller. If your dog is not extremely out of focus, you can start with slip chains, slip leads, martingales, etc. Okay. Any other questions you guys have? Again, just to kill up some time, if you guys feel like donating to the Canis Foundation, please do. Take a look at all the links in the description. It tells you different ways that you guys can donate to the foundation. It is a 501c3. It is an official nonprofit that we started. So if you guys require receipts, we'd be happy to email you guys receipts of your donations.
Emily Roberts is asking thoughts on the Halti/Gentle Leader.
Yes, good question. So Halti/Gentle Leader is a great tool. Okay. It's designed kind of the same technology that the reins of a horse is designed. The only disadvantage is I've seen dogs escape from them who are very reactive. And let's put this in context. Dogs who are very reactive, it's wonderful at stopping pulling, for sure. It is a little bit harder to teach the dog to keep something on their face. But if you can get past that point, it is a wonderful walking tool. It definitely is. For those of you guys who might be a little against corrections, actually giving a physical correction on the leash, it's a wonderful tool. However, if I have a dog who is obsessive and locks in and there's a lot of times the dogs on face harnesses, their face will be being pulled in one way, but the dog is still desiring to engage. And this is a very extreme example, I know. If you guys have a regular puppy or a regular sweet dog who's just a little out of control, a face halter is wonderful. It's just the two obstacles are just conditioning the dog to like it, or if the dog's behavior is so extreme, we might need to calm the dog down through a process called stimulation grounding, or in dog training, it's called a correction. Okay. They are wonderful tools. Tell me a little bit more about your dog, Emily, so I can help you kind of understand maybe it might be a good tool for you or not.
Sheila Lopez is asking, how do you teach a puppy to drop something that they are not supposed to be chewing on? As
So-
we wait for Emily's response.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So how do you teach a puppy to drop something that they're not supposed to be chewing on? Is this food, or is this like a stick? Is this like a toy? Reality is you have to play the game, right? So usually we teach dogs to drop things and give us things through games. So take the tug toy, release the tug toy. And so we have to condition it over and over and over. I think, give me more context if you can. I want to know exactly what the dog's putting in their mouth, because there's so many things we could do.
Beth Gold is asking, how much do you miss Oscar?
We miss Oscar so much.
And Sheila and Ace.
Bring him back.
Sheila and Ace. There.
That's what Rachel said. Sheila and Ace.
Oh, Sheila and Ace. Oh. Hi, Sheila. How are you? Hi, Sheila. How to teach the dog to stop putting things in their mouth? Well, again, so tell me what it is. Is it sticks? I know it's the toys. I know you texted me the other day. That I need to dive into a little bit more in private with you. Let's see.
He picks up anything on the ground or a sock found in a corner.
Yeah. So I think when you have a training collar, you may be so now we have the ability to teach the dogs what we don't like, and we also have the ability to associate that with a word, right? So for example, let's say we threw a napkin, and so sometimes we have to prompt the dog to fail, right? We put a tissue on, or we put a stick on the ground, or we put something the dog's not allowed to have, just so we can start teaching them certain concepts, okay? If we had a training collar on the dog, we could say or nope, give the dog a little correction, and over time, very similar to naming the command like the sit and the down, we start seeing this pairing happening where we go and the dog will spit the toy out or the item out of his mouth. But it's something we have to practice outside of the context of the dog actually trying to swallow something, right? So the more that we set the dog up to prompt the behavior, the more that we can teach the drop it or the leave it. Does that make sense? So put toys in his mouth, teach him to drop it, give it back to him. Put things he's not supposed to have in his mouth, teach him the and the leave it, right? If we can condition that more regularly, we start saying that the dog is now going to respond more verbally to the command or the sound that you're conditioning. Okay? Hope that was helpful.
Okay, and then back to Emily Roberts regarding the Halti.
Mhm.
She says, thanks, we used it on our dog who had pulled after we adopted him,
Mhm.
and I've used it on fosters who had pulled on walks.
Perfect. Yeah, Haltis are wonderful tools for sure. Especially if you have a sensitive dog, a dog who doesn't like discomfort or anything like that. Yeah, it's a good tool. It's a good tool for sure.
And then Jason King says, sounds like we should stop using a harness, question mark?
Probably. Remind me what kind of dog you have, Jason. I think you might have spoken with Rachel. So I'm trying to remember what kind of dog you have. Also, what time is it, guys?
It is 11:58.
11:58. Cool. So we got about 5 more minutes on the Q&A, guys, and then we're going to have to go ahead and cut it.
Jason says 15-pound poodle mix.
15-pound little poodle mix. Sweet. Super cute. Super cute. I think we will dive more into your specifics, but yes, generally a collar will be easier to prevent the dog from pulling, right? So if your dog is pulling, lunging, reacting, any of the above, and you see that if you're prompting the dog, it's ineffective in snapping the dog out of it or changing his mind, then yes, a training collar of some sort would be useful. We just have to make sure when the dogs are really, really small, my girlfriend, she has a little tiny dog, and I introduced a training collar to her. It helped a lot, but sometimes the act of actually giving a little prompt on that leash with really, really small dogs, sometimes it weighs on the emotions. It kind of makes us a little fearful or worried about, such a little dog, I'm yanking on him. So there are other outlets we could do. I want to see kind of how tough your dog is, how strong he is, potentially, maybe a star mark, which requires less amount of physical pressure to grab the dog's attention. As you guys saw in that video, might be an option for you. But yeah, we'll figure it out when we see each other. But most likely, 90% we probably will be moving towards a training collar.
Okay, and then going back to, Jason says thanks.
No problem, Jason.
Going back to Emily and the Halti, so yeah, mostly used for pullers. I've used treats to get him used to the over-nose Halti. Also used treats for muzzle training, which I feel was really important in getting them used to it.
Cool. Cool. Very cool. Good job, Emily. Any other questions that you have, send them my way. Happy to help you guys. Oh, real quick plug. I know you guys are watching, and thank you so much for hanging around. If you guys like podcasts, I host a podcast called the Dog Trainers Podcast. Me and one of my friends, Mariano, who is also a trainer out in Arizona, we've had the privilege. We started a podcast back in February, right before COVID. And before we knew it, this podcast blew up to be something more than we could ever have asked for. We have people who listen to us from different countries that we're so grateful for, people who comment and reach out to us. And it's awesome. And it's called the Dog Trainers Podcast. And the premise of it is to help people who are interested in coming into the dog training field so that they can have, we interview good, famous dog trainers. We talk about certain concepts. We break it down in a very educational style, kind of similar to this particular live stream. And we go over training tools, we go over methods, we go over techniques, we interview other trainers and what they do. We interview some trainers in different countries. Shout out to Melissa and Vanessa Velez out in South America. We are able to kind of talk about training for people who are interested in dog training, who just want to learn more from the dog trainer's perspective of how it is we think, what it is that we do. So check it out. It's at Dog Trainers Podcast. You guys can find it on Instagram, and you guys can find it on any podcast streaming service. At Dog Trainers Podcast, all one word, Dog Trainers Podcast, or this way, Dog Trainers Podcast. Okay, any other questions?
No more questions.
Cool. If there's no more questions, guys, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us for this live stream. This was an amazing episode 2. Thank you guys again. Hopefully you guys come back next week. We're going to go over socialization and kind of how it works. Thank you guys again. If you guys are interested in donating to the Canis Foundation, look at the links in the description below to get some more information about that. Anything you guys can offer, $1, $2, it's going to help us with the creation of online streams like this, creation of content for you guys, and really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you guys so much. Again, my name is Brent Labrada with the Canis Foundation, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.